Hello and welcome to my ramble.
Virtual narrative environments, abstract philosophical play space. In common gamer parlance, the campaign setting, the narrative framework in which gameplay can proceed. This game space may be virtually as large as all the multiverse, or as small as a single room, but it is only one part of the narrative, the part related to the virtual environment or campaign world space. The other part of the narrative is also called the campaign, in common gamer parlance, the unfolding story, the played timeline. The main portion of the campaign plot as is directly witnessed and interacted with by the players on the mind stage of the narrative environment. This temporally linear and directly involved sequence of observable game events, or the main plot, has its own philosophical mind space, its own metaphorically contemplated environment. Perhaps you might think of it as a stage play, in the tradition of William Shakespeare. Perhaps you think of it as a network of linearly linked nodes in an organizational diagram, flowchart, mind map, process diagram, network diagram, UML wireframe, information web, or storyline map, as these graphical representations have become common to creative writing and user interface designs. Perhaps you think of it as a playing field, and some loosely defined multi-sport is used for analogy. Perhaps it is like a chessboard in your mind's eye, and all the pieces are metaphorical representations of key people and objects. As in Alice in Wonderland, the chessboard may include playing cards, checkers, and a multitude of bit parts represented by many games and toys. Indeed, this narrative plot board may itself take on a rather patchwork metaphorical fantasy design, incorporating all the various narrative environment spaces as seen on every board game you have previously encountered. These metaphorical abstractions are tools, nothing more, nothing less. All the virtual world is a stage, and the players merely characters not accounted for directly by the GM. This virtual game space, or campaign world, has its virtual temporal space, and however you personally describe it, the meanings of other metaphorical representations still describe the same virtual mind space relating to plot and timeline as it plays out sequentially or organically upon the campaign world's metaphorical stage. And it would be wise to use more than one abstraction, more than one metaphoric construct in your vocabulary toolbox. And with that in mind, I could propose a descriptive metaphor arranging these abstract things within the mind as an aid to seeing the unseeable, for considering the undefinable, and contemplating the unfathomable. But take care that we don't get lost in the forests of our own minds' illusionary constructs, and begin to think that this is relatable to some philosophical tradition that needs to be contemplated to the exclusion of all other possible views, defended for its virtues to the ignorance of all other methods. It is a mind tool, an aid in a land of abstracts, a metaphor, and nothing more. All the world is a stage, and upon that stage temporally linked roads of potential continuity and the desires of people laid out in the best of plans. A line of causality laid down by a key component that has no reason to believe, nor any immediate show of weakening, can be considered likened to the iron rails of a well-laid track. Those going in that direction can easily volunteer or be coerced to ride the train conveniently located at points accessible to them. Such strict ironclad plot rides are not in and of themselves detrimental to any narrative game environment. However, unlike a scripted narrative environment, the players are given the ability to choose and contemplate choice not accounted for by a director or writer. Players of personas in a narrative game environment must have that choice, or they will not feel compelled to participate. Plot depots are places where player characters, and potentially organically run non-player characters, are allowed to conveniently switch modes of narrative direction. Like a train or bus depot, new schedules and routes are likely very apparent. Unlike a real-world depot, layovers are not likely to take longer than desired. There is always a waiting plot device that can serve the purpose of a persona chariot. Otherwise, it is not much of a plot depot. Even a lone bus stop is really just waiting for someone to sit down. Once they do, the chariot arrives, as if on cue. Plots in a well-thought-out campaign could be considered various, and should be plentiful and diverse. This is what gives players choice. And remember, players need choice, not just a mere illusion of it. They will know the difference eventually. It is not an if, it is a when. Choice is why there is the desire to play the RPG, at the table, or LARP in the park, and not on a game console. It is the draw to participate in a dynamic narrative with a group, instead of following a story in a book or on TV. Think that it is of no use to you to give players this freedom if you like, but you have been warned. It is a group participatory event that players come together for, and it is these freedoms that they desire and expect. There is no avoiding it, only ways of masking it, and that will work for only so long. So, upon the temporal layer of the campaign stage, every key player, be it NPC, organization, natural causative, or divine interference, lays out a plot that grows from some source seed of desire and planned or causality continuity. These are your plot roads. Where they intersect, virtual abstracts arise that are likened to depots, plot depots, story nodes, locations where plot vehicles can be requisitioned with ease, and the choices of paths are, within reason and context, more clear than elsewhere. Some plot roads will be appearing like the firm iron rail, some like the shifting sand, some will have obvious guardrails or curb walls, others none at all. A persona could slowly walk along a rail as easily as hop a train at any given time on a given plot road traveling in a given direction. But at these nodes there are chariots, bicycles, horses, and cobbler stores with the best walking shoes. There are airports with intercontinental rocks waiting for duty, and portals that slip between plot points as outright shortcuts. No one mans the depot. There are no real entities to be train porter or baggage handler. No one needs to check at a desk to rent a rock. Find the route, use the route, or don't. Remember, this is all an abstraction, less real than the ethereal plane for our would-be fantasy world personas' cosmological reality. A way for the organizational model of a campaign's temporal causality continuum to be held in the mind, briefly, for arranging key details, and then set aside again, once those details take a more readily cognitive shape. Perhaps in the mind, perhaps on paper. However you arrange it, the world is a stage, and the players move through it, interact with it, but it moves and interacts back, and with itself, even when no players are present.